Mr. Men in Ireland by Adam Hargreaves. Mr. Quiet was enjoying a quiet walk when he met the one person he did not want to meet, Mr. Chatterbox. "Hello, hello, hello," chattered Mr. Chatterbox. "You're very quiet, aren't you, Mr. Quiet? You need to get out there and chat more, just like me. In fact, what you need to do is to learn the gift of the gab. Now, what is the gift of the gab, I hear you say? It means that you can chat with ease. In fact, there is a stone in Ireland called the Blarney Stone, and if you kiss it, well, you will be granted the gift of the gab. Shall we go?" And before Mr. Quiet could say a word, it all had been settled. They were going to Ireland. And, as it turned out, lots of other their friends wanted to join them, especially little Miss Lucky. She wanted to see the shamrock, the clover, which is the symbol of Ireland. And most of all, she wanted to find a four-leaf clover. Little Miss Lucky had a lucky horseshoe and a lucky number 7. But the one thing she did not have was a four-leaf clover, which was even luckier because it was so difficult to find. But being as lucky as little Miss Lucky was, she found her as soon as they arrived.
I was certainly after that lucky charm, wasn't I?
Sightseeing around Ireland was going to be so much fun. As they set off, everyone was in a jolly mood. Mr. Chatterbox was chattily jolly. Miss Noisy was noisily jolly. Little Miss Splendid was splendidly jolly. And Mr. Quiet was quietly jolly. There are so many ways to be jolly. The first stop on their trip was the city of Belfast, Northern Ireland, where they visited the Titanic Belfast. The Titanic is one of the biggest passenger ships ever built, but it hit an iceberg on its maiden voyage. The Titanic Experience is an enormous exhibition which tells the story of the famous ship. The front of the building looked like the prow of the Titanic and was just as big. "You can never be described as You can never be described as Titanic," said Mr. Rue, looking down at Mrs. Fall. "More like pant-sized or puny or tishy," he snickered rudely. "And I could say the same for you," chuckled Mr. Toll. Aww. The next morning they drove to Carrick-a-Red, where they decided to walk across the famous cable bridge, suspended high above the sea. However, as they crossed the bridge, it began to sink. Down it dropped, until they all had their feet in the sea. What had happened?
"Mr. Greedy,
asked the Splendid.
how many oyster fries did you have this morning?"
1 or 2, replied Mr. Greedy, sheepishly.
"And by the looks of it, 2 or 3 more, to be exact,"
replied little Miss Splendid crossly, looking at her very wet shoes. Mr. Greedy was so heavy that the cables were stretched under his weight and weighed the bridge down. Oops! It wasn't long before Mr. Greedy wanted to eat again. When they stopped for a picnic lunch at White Park Bay, there were cows on the beach. Mr. Silly thought this was wonderfully silly. "Cows on a beach?" he exclaimed. "How silly! They'll be lying in deck chairs and naked sandcastles before we know it!" Could you imagine that? Oh, he's not wrong, you know. Further along the coast, they discovered the Giant's Causeway, where they climbed over the strange rock formations. Mr. Jello was rather nervous. "Oh, do you think there are real giants?" he worried. Suddenly, an enormous voice boomed out, "Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the blood of a jelly man!" Mr. Jelly shrieked and jumped to the air right. Woo! But it wasn't a giant, it was Mr. Noisy. Mr. Jelly was not amused. Then they took the ferry across to Rathlin Island to spend the night there. But Mr. Chatterbox was so busy chatting, they drove off the ferry before it arrived. Kersplash! And little Miss Splendid had a wet hat as well as wet shoes. But at least she met some of the local wildlife.
"Ah, my goodness me! My hat's red! Seesaw does not agree with me! Or my hat!"
right off overnight. When Mr. Quiet saw their Galway fishing boat the next day, he didn't believe they'd be dry for long, especially with Mr. Bump on board. But amazingly, they all did manage to stay dry. They even caught some fish. I'm sure he didn't expect that. Maybe because little Miss Lucky's four-leaf clover had something to do with it.
How amazing, Mr. Bump! You caught a fish and you didn't fall overboard. I knew my lucky clover would bring us good luck.
Either that, or I just feel safer around you, little Miss Lucky.
After their fishing trip, they sailed on further to the Aran Islands, which are famous for their woolly fishermen's jumpers. Even Mr. Grady found one to fit him, although it seemed to be shrinking. Naughty little Miss Naughty.
I caught you! Hook, line, and sinker!
Hey, I'm cold here. Mr. Chatterbox is full of facts about Ireland, very long-winded facts. He told them that it was also known as the Emerald Isle because the grass is so lush and green, which meant that the cows could produce the best milk to make the most delicious butter. There was something else it was perfect for. It was a perfect camouflage to Miss Nosy. All the better for being nosy.
Hey, Walter, fancy seeing you here. Oh, but my name's William, not Walter. I don't know who this Walter is, so I don't.
They drove across the lush Irish countryside to Dublin, a beautiful university city set on the banks of the River Liffey. That evening, they went to a pub for supper. Mr. Chatterbox was in his element, for it was there that he discovered he had the true Irish gift for the gab. He spent the whole night chatting like he'd never chatted before. But when he caught up with the others next day, something had happened. Something terrible. He had lost his voice. Only his friends did not seem as concerned. In fact, they seemed strangely happier. It was a much happier and quieter journey to the town of Kilkenny. But things didn't remain quiet for long. There was an arts festival with theatre and singing and dancing. Mr. Noisy couldn't help himself and joined in the very singing. He sang all night long, and he lost his voice as well. So it was an even quieter journey on their final destination that day, Blarney Castle, and the famous Blarney Stone. Mr. Quiet was not all out sure he wanted the gift of the gab. He was really very happy living the quiet life. But he did not want to disappoint Mr. Chatterbox. So Mr. Strong hung him from his feet in front of the step, which is the only way to reach it when he kissed the step. Everyone held their breath in anticipation. Had it worked? Had Mr. Quiet got the gift of the gab? And then he began to chatter and chatter and chatter. But the funny thing was that they could barely hear him. Stoner made him chatter, but it had not made him louder. And because Mr. Chatterbox and Mr. Noisy had lost their voices, their trip to Ireland ended on a much quieter note than anyone could have expected. Mr. Quiet was very happy.
Well, Mr. Quiet,
said little Miss Lucky to Mr. Quiet.
do you know what they call that?
What? Smiled Mr. Quiet.
That's the luck of the Irish!
And she gave Mr. Quiet the second four-leaf clover she found. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone!
You must be after that lucky charm. Happy St. Patrick's Day!